The first thing the alien instructors learned about humans was that a computer can panic, but a human can improvise, and that difference nearly rewrote their entire doctrine of warfare. The training canyon roared like a living thing, hurricane winds tearing across the simulated landscape hard enough to hurl grit like shrapnel, the air thick with silicate dust that would peel armor plating in a real environment, and on the tactical overlay hovering above the range a single number blinked in stubborn red, impact probability 0. According to every known model, every predictive algorithm, the shot was impossible. Cadet Mara Kessler didn't look at the projection. She lay flat in the dirt with her cheek pressed against the stock of a weapon so primitive it bordered on insulting the facility that surrounded it. The rifle wasn't sleek or glowing or self-correcting. It didn't hum with microservos or whisper to the network. It was metal, glass, and intention. She wasn't fighting the wind. She was listening to it. Human operative, barked the range marshal over the thunder of the storm generators. Target lock failed. Abort the attempt. Mara exhaled slowly, emptying her lungs until her heartbeat became the loudest thing in her skull. The alien cadets trusted their weapons to solve chaos. Humans learned to live inside it. The rifle cracked like a lightning strike, a violent tearing of air that felt ancient compared to the polite glow of energy fire, and 3 seconds later a drone 3.5 kilometers away exploded into a glittering cloud. For a heartbeat the storm kept screaming, unaware that the impossible had just happened. 40 minutes earlier, the range had been quiet, pristine, a white corridor of synthetic stone and force fields where the reptilian Carthy cadets stood in flawless formation, their rifles linked directly to the hub's tactical AI, each shot adjusted in real time by processors older than human civilization. At the far end of the line stood Mara, small, soaked in sweat despite the climate control, feeding a brass cartridge into her rifle by hand. Instructor Krell paused behind her, his scaled jaw flexing in open amusement. "This is a qualification arena," he said. "Not a museum. That device belongs in a history archive." A ripple of laughter passed down the line. To the Carthy, war was a negotiation between shields and energy output. The idea of throwing a solid projectile with controlled explosions was barbaric. "It's accurate," Mara said simply, cycling the bolt with a sharp metallic snap. Krell leaned closer. "It is blind. No guidance, no compensation. You are guessing." She didn't answer. Back home she'd been a civilian competitor, a weekend marksman who spent her spare time obsessing over wind drift and barrel harmonics for fun. The Alliance misunderstood humans in a fundamental way. They assumed discipline created skill. They didn't understand that humans gamified survival. They turned physics into hobbies. When the qualification began, the Carthy rifles hummed and corrected, shots landing with mathematical perfection, but each burst required recalibration as the simulated wind shifted. Mara dropped prone and became still. She wasn't shooting targets. She was solving the atmosphere. Every squeeze of the trigger was preceded by a storm of mental arithmetic: bullet drop, rotational drift, air density, the invisible push of crosswinds. Her rifle cracked again and again, a steady rhythm, and targets fell in impossible sequence. She banked rounds off angled plates to strike drones hiding behind cover. She threaded shots through gaps that existed for fractions of seconds. By the time the final marker shattered, the firing line had gone silent. The system announced her score in a tone that sounded confused: 100% accuracy. Krell stared at her as if she'd stepped outside biology. Then the observation deck above them darkened, and the High Commander arrived. The arena transformed with a groan of machinery. The white corridor dissolved into a canyon carved from obsidian, storm clouds boiling overhead as rain slashed sideways. "Extreme scenario," the computer announced, voice stuttering under the load. "Category 5 atmospheric violence. Target, hypervelocity skiff. Range, 3.5 kilometers." The Carthy stepped back instinctively, shielding their optical implants as their rifles screamed error codes. Energy fire scattered uselessly in the rain. To them the equation had become unsolvable. Mara lay back down in the mud. She pulled a laminated card from her pocket, handwritten numbers smudged by use. Krell watched her, his earlier arrogance gone. The wind shear alone makes deviation catastrophic, he muttered. The High Commander's voice rolled across the deck. Observe. Mara adjusted her scope in tiny clicks, each one deliberate. She wasn't guessing. She was applying laws her species had turned into sport centuries before touching space. She visualized the arc, the storm bending around it, the bullet riding chaos like a rail. For her this wasn't war. It was a Sunday competition stretched to cosmic scale. She exhaled into the quiet space between heartbeats and fired. The recoil slammed into her shoulder. The projectile screamed across the canyon, visibly shoved off course by the gale, a miss to anyone who didn't understand what they were seeing. Then the wind curved it. The skiff disintegrated mid-flight, shredded by kinetic force. The storm faded. Silence returned like a held breath finally released. Mara stood, ejected the casing, and slung the rifle over her shoulder with casual boredom. The High Commander leaned forward, all four of his eyes fixed on her. He didn't see a recruit. He saw a revelation. Reclassify humanity, he ordered quietly. We believed they were engineers because they build wonders. We believed they were diplomats because they negotiate endlessly. But a species that practices long-range killing as recreation, he let the sentence hang. Around them, instructors stared at the telemetry confirming the impossible shot. That is not a soldier, he finished. That is a predator wearing the shape of prey. The realization spread through the chamber like a chill. The Alliance had prepared for elegant wars of energy and shields while humans had been perfecting asymmetry for fun, turning physics into a playground where survival was a game scored in millimeters. Mara wiped rain from her optic and glanced up at the stunned observers, unaware she'd just shifted interstellar doctrine. To her, it had been another shot. Another puzzle solved. Somewhere deep in the command network, new files were opening, new simulations running, entire strategies being reconsidered around the existence of a species that treated impossibility as a personal challenge. And if you enjoyed this story of humans rewriting the rules simply by refusing to accept them, subscribe for more sci-fi narratives where small moments reveal terrifying truths about who we are among the stars.